Present aircraft vertical speed, upon mode entry, is displayed in the MCP vertical speed window. It can be altered by the pilot now. We set minus 1,000 feet per minute. The auto throttle is in speed mode, as before in the altitude hold mode. The FGS will use pitch to give priority to vertical speed. Here, pitch attitude is lowered, and the auto throttle reduces thrust to maintain a speed of 250 knots. If we alter speed or vertical speed, pitch and thrust is adjusted as necessary. When approaching the selected altitude or flight level, altitude acquire and subsequently altitude hold are activated as already explained. Auto throttle remains in speed mode. We set speed to 290 knots, the standard IAS for high-speed descents. ATC clears us 4,000 feet on QNH 1013 at a high vertical rate. 4,000 is set in the altitude window, vertical speed mode activated, and 4,500 feet per minute are set in the vertical speed window. Pitch is lowered and thrust reduced to a minimum, flight idle, as the vertical descent speed is very high. In vertical speed mode, vertical speed has priority, and so it will be maintained, here, minus 4,500 feet per minute. Even if speed cannot be controlled with idle thrust, the aircraft is not able to maintain such high rates without accelerating beyond VMO or MMO. When the maximum operating speed is reached, here, the VMO of 300 knots, an automatic mode reversion to the level change mode occurs. As aircraft altitude is above selected altitude, auto throttle enters the retard mode and remains subsequently in the arm state, and the FGS enters speed mode, here IAS, and controls the MCP selected speed, here 290 knots. Now the pitch is increased and speed reduced. The aircraft automatically flies out of the red and black band back to safe operating speeds. Note that for this function, autopilot or flight director must be engaged. The pitch synchronization function is only available with autopilot off and flight director on. Auto throttle may be on or off. So when in flight director level change mode, the pilot is able to redatum the selected and thus controlling speed to the present value by pressing the FD sync button on the hand wheel. When the FD sync button is pressed, the FD and IAS or Mach legend in the FMA turns white, and the MCP selected speed is reset to present speed. When the button is released, FD and IAS or Mach return green, and new speed is the controlling value for the aircraft pitch through the flight director. Remember that pitch synchronization function is only available with autopilot off and the flight director on, irrespective of auto throttle selection. In flight director vertical speed mode, the pilot is able to redatum the selected and thus controlling vertical speed to the present value by pressing the FD sync button. When the FD sync button is pressed, the FD and VS legend in the FMA turn white, and the MCP selected vertical speed is reset to present vertical speed. When the button is released, FD and VS return green, and the new vertical speed is the controlling value for the aircraft pitch through the flight director. The localizer mode, LOC, is armed or engaged through the VOR LOC button on the MCP. When an ILS or localizer frequency has been tuned at the VHF nav controller on the master side, LOC arms and captures same as the VOR mode. The localizer mode can be armed from any other lateral mode, but it is common to use heading mode for the intercept. The navigational ILS approach setup at the MCP by tuning the ILS frequency at both VHF nav controllers, and by setting the ILS front course on both course selectors is already done. It is important to select the correct front course at both course selectors, as this value is used by the FGS as track reference for final approach, which is corrected during approach for drift. This is true for all approaches using a localizer. Localizer and ILS, Cat 1, 2, and 3 approaches. The armed state of the localizer mode can be disarmed by pushing the VOR LOC button a second time, or by selecting a VOR frequency on the master side VHF nav controller, or by selection of LNAV. As soon as capture criteria have been met, LOC1 engages and the heading mode automatically disengages. The on light in the heading button extinguishes, and check that LOC1 turns green at the FMA. In localizer mode, bank angle is limited to 10 degrees. The activated localizer mode can be disengaged by a second push of the VOR LOC button. In that case, the lateral default mode roll is entered, or by selecting a VOR frequency on the master side VHF nav controller. Or by selection of another lateral mode, such as heading or LNAV. Localizer back mode is accessed through the VOR LOC button as for the normal localizer mode. The localizer back mode will be armed when the intercept track is outside of plus or minus 100 degrees of the localizer front course, which is set in the course window as for conventional approaches, here 360 degrees. BKCRS appears in white on the PFD and ND instead of the glide slope deviation indicator. Check that back localizer is indicated in green at the FMA after capture. Glide slope mode arming as well as activation is inhibited in this mode. If the localizer back course approach is flown, coupled to the flight director and/or autopilot, lateral deviation indication on the PFD is in the correct sense and may be used. Do not use the lateral deviation indicators on the standby